What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters. Welcome to Live to Metal. Gonna do a what's spinning video here. Just a pile of records that I've been spinning over the last few days. There's actually quite a few here, so I'm gonna just get right into it. A little bit of everything in here. Of course, most of it being hard rock and metal, which is pretty average for me. So first of all, I'm kind of going in reverse order. This is the last album. I just finished spinning this one a few moments ago while I was working. Scorpions taking my fourth last album with Uli Roth. Spectacular heavy metal album from 1978, 79, somewhere in that area. 77. This is the European cover. This is a recent reissue, the 30th anniversary edition. Actually comes with a CD with bonus tracks on it. Very nice pressing, sounds good, looks good. Really glad to have it. So if you're into Scorpions, if you're into Uli Roth, if you're into solid, real heavy metal, this album is one of the best, and you need to get it if you don't have it in your collection. Standout tracks, so of course Steam Rock Fever, We'll Burn the Sky. There's just not a bad song on here. The Sales of Sharon is simply mind-blowing. He's a Woman, She's a Man is another classic, so you know, if you're at all a fan of heavy metal, you probably already know all those songs. So next up, we've got, this is a classic from 1975, Ted Nugent. I play Nugent a lot. Love Nugent, always have, since I literally was a kid, 1977 or so, and I just, you know, was blown away by his bombastic sound, and really that sound is present here. Nowhere is it more present than on Double Live Gonzo. I think that really captures Nugent's sound, whereas this one here, the studio recording kind of, it lacks a little bit of gusto, but the songs here are just brilliant. I mean, this album right here is worth the price for just Stranglehold alone. But then you've got Stormtroopin', Hey Baby, Just What Doctor Ordered, just all classic songs on that whole first side there. Side two's got Snakeskin Cowboys, which is a killer song, a little more of a groove-oriented R&B song. And you've got Motor City Madhouse, which is just another bombastic Nugent song. And then Queen of the Forest, You Make Me Feel Alright, and Where Have You Been All My Life. Those songs fall more towards the Amboy Duke sound than the rest of the album does. But regardless, it's a solid album, front to back. Great stuff from the Detroit rocker. One of the originators of the heavy guitar sound, heavy metal sound, whatever you want to call it. Spun two from this band. This is Cold Steel. This is from years ago. There's some crap inside this one that I can't see anything. Came with a poster from the band that was signed. I can't remember what year this thing came out. I don't see a year on here. It was only a few years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago. But it's a EP from their East Coast USA band. Just great 3-speed thrash metal. Unfortunately, they haven't put anything out since then. The singer also sings in Them as well, and Them recently put out a new album. So Them are more of a King Diamond, Merciful Fate-ish inspired band, whereas Cold Steel is just pure American thrash metal. Great stuff. Because I played that one, I also spun the Demo Years, which is some of their late 80s stuff. Great stuff. I really enjoyed this album. I wish they would, what's the name of their album? I can't remember the name of one of their CDs. The CD that, yeah, I can't remember the name of the CD. In any case, the one CD that I really love by them, whose name is slipping my mind right now, as far as I know, has never been pressed to vinyl and really needs to be. I'm not sure why it hasn't been. UK thrash metal from Acid Rain was talking to Steve online. Steve, who lives in the UK, he was just talking about what, you know, how easy their stuff is to find over in the UK, as opposed to over here where you just never see it. Like Obnoxious is one I've never owned it. I've never owned Obnoxious on CD, cassette, vinyl. Never owned it. It's been on my want list for over a decade. So anyhow, we're talking about that, so I just decided to pull out some Acid Rain, give it a spin. Very punk influenced thrash metal from the UK. Great stuff. Some more thrash metal, of course. This is a US East Coast thrash metal band, Anthrax. These guys were a local band when I was in high school. Me and my buddies all bought the Soldiers of Metal. I had to look at the back. Soldiers of Metal 7-inch single when it was a brand new release, and couldn't wait for the full-length album that came out. And these guys, we just tore it up. You know, I hung out a lot with the guys who were in Heathen's Rage at the time when I was in high school, and those guys played several songs of this album, and then ended up opening up for them several years later. And you know, this album is just spectacular. Anybody who thinks this band doesn't belong in the Big Four probably hasn't heard this album, because this album is probably one of the best debut records from the Big Four, whatever you want to call them. I don't know. I think Slayer's best was their first. I think Anthrax's best was their first. I think Metallica's best was their first. So Megadeth, yeah, I think Megadeth actually got better as they went along. I think Anthrax released some classic albums too, but if I was to pick an absolute favorite, this album is just stellar. It just has such a youthful drive, a punk energy. Nobody sounds quite like them here. They didn't sound like Metallica. They didn't sound like, you know, Slayer. They sounded like Anthrax, super fast. It was like almost like Iron Maiden meets Judas Priest on speed, and that's what you're going to get here. Yeah, lyrics are a little corny. I really liked what's his name here, Neil Turbin's vocals. You know, Joey Belladonna was great too, and he ushered in a whole new era for Anthrax. But Neil Turbin was great on this album, and yeah, like I said, his lyrics were a little corny. You know, it was very much influenced by that whole new wave of British heavy metal movement. So, some new wave of traditional heavy metal from Savage Master. These guys from the USA. The drummer who played on their second album, his name is Zach. He sent me recently. I just put it up. I should have left it out so I could show it. There it is. Sent me one of his drumsticks that he used to record the second. There's a hair on it. The second Savage Master record, and he also sent me a set list and a little note, so I stuck it in my record so I wouldn't lose them. But yeah, very dark lyrics, very B-grade horror, occult kind of lyrics. Female vocals, really enjoy her vocals because she's not like, she doesn't have a very clean voice. She's not like these operatic bands that a lot of these, you know, like Nightwish are into. Just more raw, gruff, and still female. Still has that kind of sex appeal, if I could say that, but it's in a different way. It's more metal. It's less operatic, which I prefer in metal myself. So great stuff. Corny lyrics, good music. These guys have got a new album out for pre-sale right now, actually, and I will be definitely checking that out. Speaking of female vocals and classic heavy metal, Chastain, listening to this, which is what got me in the mood to hear the Savage Wisdom. Just so happened I got the drumstick in at the same time, but this was the fourth or fifth full-length album from Chastain. Leather Leone on vocals once again. Again, she's got that kind of just gruff, tough, you know, I don't know how to explain it. It's just not that, it's not poppy, it's not operatic, you know, it's not Nightwish, it's not Vixen either. It's just raw, heavy, but it's still female vocals, and it still has that kind of female sex appeal that you know you almost expect with a female vocalist in a heavy metal band. Yeah, she just, you know, like Joan Jett, you know, Joan is just a badass, and Leather Leone is a badass, and she fits in a metal band, and that's kind of what you get here. This album is a little more thrashy. I'm not going to say it's thrash metal, but a little more pushing towards the speed metal zone. And it's actually one of my favorite Chastain albums, for those who dare. This is a UK pressing on Roadrunner. I believe this came out in 1990, was the original year it was pressed, and this is actually an original pressing. I'm not even sure it was ever repressed. This one guy came in the mail last week, devoured this thing, listened to both records all the way through, and just cranked it and loved it. Second album from Montrose, Paper Money. You know, I've never owned this on CD or vinyl. I know almost all the songs inside and out. You know, I've heard these songs played a million times. Why I didn't own it, I don't know. I own the first Montrose. Matter of fact, I own the original pressing and the repressing, the 2 LP repressing. But for whatever reason, I never picked up Paper Money. And I don't know why, because it's a great album. The thing is, this also has a live disc on LP2, and it is actually the first time the band ever played live, and they were playing live in the studio over the radio in December 26, 1974, and they weren't even called Montrose yet. They didn't even have a name according to the announcer at the time. So interesting. But the live album: I Got the Fire, Rock Candy, Bad Motor Scooter, Space Sage, Sacrifice, 1.5, Roll Over Beethoven, which is of course a Chuck Berry song, Trouble, and Space Station Number 5. I ended up playing a couple from this next band. I pulled this one out first. This is a second full-length album from TT Quick, Sloppy Seconds. Raw, crunchy, aggressive, New Jersey, New York-based heavy metal. These guys, in my opinion, were one of the best. Never really saw the big time. I don't know why. They were around in the early 80s. They should have been. They just, I don't know, not the right management, not something. I always thought they had just a badass logo, too. And great vocals. There's just nothing bad about this band. They're just so great. Why they never got bigger, I don't know. Of course, this album cover leaves a little bit to be desired, but this is the original vinyl pressing album cover. Mine's autographed by Mark, which is cool. Of course, Mark went on to sing for... Mark Tornillo went on to sing for Accept and is still singing for Accept to this day. And as well as that one, I spun the EP, which is my all-time favorite from them. This is one I was into when I was in high school. Pretty sure, I can't remember which friend of mine, but one of my friends had this painted on his denim vest on the back, and why not? It's a badass logo. I love it. So, and you know, it's funny because I was looking at this when I pulled this record out. I hadn't pulled it out in quite a while, and I'm thinking, man, my No Let Till Middle logo is very much similar in style to this logo. Wasn't intentional, might have been subconscious, but yeah, very similar style to this, which I've always loved this logo. So the No Let Till Middle logo is, you know, cool too. So anyhow, 5-song EP, one cover song, which was Fortunate Son by John Fogerty or CCR. Go for the Throat, Child of Sin, Metal Man, and Victims. This album, as far as I know, has never been officially put to CD. Don't know why. Alright, a little melodic metal from Joshua. I believe this was their third album. Yeah, I think it was their third album. Rob Rock is the vocalist here. Joshua Pariah is the guitar player. He was huge in, especially in Japan for some odd reason, but he's just one of those 80s shredders that can just, you know, tear up a fretboard. And but his style is very different from like an Yngwie Malmsteen or Chris Impellitteri, because his music is much more melodic. I want to say poppy. It's just more melodic. It's not real heavy. Back in the day, you know, I wouldn't have argued this was heavy metal, but listening to this now and comparing it to what we called heavy metal in the 80s, it is actually more melodic and not quite as heavy as a lot of the 80s heavy metal bands were. Still, great album, great cover art, great guitar player, very enjoyable album. One of those, you know, all those songs you sing along as they're playing because they're just, I don't know, they just are. They're just like that. That was back when, you know, writing hooks was part of writing metal. Pulled this one out just because I was having a discussion with someone about Lynyrd Skynyrd, and they were talking about, I don't remember what exactly it was, Alan Collins, and I don't know where it came from. Anyhow, regardless, I said, you know, I haven't heard this in a long time. A very long time, so I pulled it out and gave it a spin. If you're a Lynyrd Skynyrd fan, this album is a Lynyrd Skynyrd album. I mean, it really has that kind of vibe to it. Yeah, it doesn't have, you know, all the Skynyrd members on it, but it's got Alan Collins, who was one of the main guitar players, songwriters in the band. Also has Leon Wilkeson on bass and Billy Powell on piano. So yeah, it's definitely got that vibe to it, more so than some of the other stuff they did outside of Skynyrd. You know, right after that, like Rosalind Collins' band had a little more of a poppy feel. It still had a southern rock vibe to it. It was a little more poppy, especially with was it Neil Cranston, her name, the vocalist. She had a really cool female voice, but it was just different than Skynyrd. Same thing with the band that Leon Wilkinson and Billy Powell joined after the plane crash, which was Vision. That band was very 80s sounding, very poppy sounding, poppy hard. I shouldn't say poppy, because you think poppy it's like Madonna. No, it's not that. It's just more of a commercial hard rock kind of stuff, AOR. Whereas this is definitely more in the southern rock vibe, more earthy than a lot of the stuff they did in the 80s with other bands. What year was this one released, actually? I don't see a year on here. 1983. Could have been recorded in 1974. It's kind of got that vibe to it. Yeah, Rick just got into a Motorhead mood. So I played well, I actually played this first. The I Got Mine single. I was slipping through my stuff and I pulled the single out, played the front and the back. So you've got I Got Mine, and then Turn You Around Again and Tales of Glory. And then I played the Shine 12-inch single. Both these are UK singles from this album, which has Hoochie Coochie Man, Don't Need Religion live on the backside. And then I just pulled out the entire album and listened to the whole thing. A lot of people didn't like this album. I remember at the time people hated it. I was a huge Thin Lizzy fan and a huge Motorhead fan when this thing came out, which I believe was, what, 1983? Yeah, 83. And I loved it. What can I say? Brian Robertson brought a different sound into Motorhead for sure. A little more musical, you might say. But regardless, what they got for that one album they had with him is spectacular. He didn't last very long. I guess you can't have multiple chiefs in such a small tribe, and that's what they had with him in the band. But it's unfortunate it didn't last longer and give us more. But at the same time, he kind of stuck out like a sore thumb on stage. People didn't like him. He refused to play certain Motorhead songs, so it just didn't, it wasn't a long-term thing. But what we got left behind was a great album. Another perfect day from Motorhead. This one here, you're probably going to say, yeah, you've showed this thing a million times. I have. I don't care. It's self-promotion, but it's self-promotion because I've been listening to it. I like it a lot. The new album from Helix, old school songs written in the 80s and recorded in 2019. Just a great record from them. I've been listening to it over and over and over again. If you like Helix, if you like that classic 80s Helix, you're going to dig this. This is a great album. For me, Helix was just an underrated band. I think they got stuck into the hair metal mode because of the song Rock You, which is definitely a cheesy, song. But it's not the only song they wrote. Kind of like Warrant. Warrant kind of gets that same hair metal, lame pop band thing because of Cherry Pie. And yeah, Cherry Pie is a really corny song. Ranks right up there with Def Leppard's Pour Some Sugar on Me as pure pop crap. But they also recorded a lot of other songs. Same thing with Helix, man. They've got albums and albums with a great hard rock and heavy metal, and that one song I think really just held them back, in my opinion. Who knows? Maybe I'm totally off on that. But speaking of Canadian bands, I was on a classic rock kick. Somebody showed a Pat Travers record in one of their videos. It's funny because I do listen to a lot of stuff, and people show. I'm like, yeah, I haven't heard that in a while. Or oh, I haven't seen that in a while. I haven't pulled that one. And that's what it was here. Oh, it was actually Greg the Egg. We were actually talking back and forth. He went to see Pat Travers, and he posted a bunch of videos of Pat Travers live, so I just started pulling out stuff. This is one of his finest albums. This is Heat in the Street. This is the Pat Travers band at their very, very best. Heavy guitar record. Let me see here. Let me see if I can get the... There we go. Because they get a better picture of the band inside here. So you've got Pat Thrall on guitars, Mars Crawling on bass, Tommy Aldridge on drums, and Pat Travers, of course, on guitar and vocals. So yeah, great album. It's one of my all-time favorites. Matter of fact, I think this is a 78 album. Yeah, 78. I think I did a video of top Canadian releases 1978, and as I recall, that was #1. If I remember, I'll try and put a link to that video up somewhere. Right along with that one, this is Pat Travers' band Black Pearl, and of course there's a photo in the front which doesn't belong there, but that was a promo copy. Hang on, I need to adjust this record a little bit. It's kind of falling. Yeah, it's a promo copy. The hype sticker that you see here is actually on the record itself. Pull it out so you can see it. So here's the actual record. Very good condition, but yeah, it's a gold stamp radio promo, and it came with the photo from the tour. It's funny because if you look on the back, it says guitarist for Aerosmith. No, it wasn't. They toured with Aerosmith for this album. I saw them Aerosmith were on the Rockin' Hard Place tour in 1983, and Pat Travers were on the Black Pearl tour, and they did tour the U.S. together. Why whoever wrote on the back of this said this is the guitarist for Aerosmith, I don't know. But yeah, it's actually got if you look closely, you can see it has a date on there, February 1983 on it. I like stuff like that, it's rock and roll history, so I collect things like that. So when I found this copy with the promo photo in it, had to have it. I've had it for a long time though, not anything new. More 70s hard rock, heavy metal, Legs Diamond. This is Firepower. I believe it was... Somebody showed this. Again, this is another one that was inspired by somebody in the VC. They showed it. Might have been Metal Ron. I think it actually was Metal Ron who showed this one. So I pulled it out and gave it a spin. Those first 3 Legs Diamonds albums are all classics. It's funny. Everybody has them, but no one talks about them. So there you go. Legs Diamond, Firepower. Just great U.S. heavy metal. Huge fan of this band. If anybody asked me, I'd always say that the first album was my favorite, but I don't know if it really is. Because whenever I want to hear Angel, I usually end up pulling out Hell of a Band or this one. They're more guitar oriented than the first album was. The first album was a little more progressive, keyboards were more prominent, whereas here the guitars are more up front, and it's a heavier vibe, you know. But anyhow, regardless, I spun this record. I have 2 copies of this. I pulled them both out. So maybe one of you guys can help me, one of you guys Angel fans, but I have 2 different pressings. They're basically the same. You can see the colors a little different. There's some differences in the on the spines. What I want to know is, what does the original sleeve look like on the on this Angel pressing? And I'll show you what my sleeve looks like. Because both these have different sleeves. They're both Casablanca sleeves. But this sleeve is a little different in that it has... So there's the sleeve that came in this one. I don't know if anybody else has that sleeve or not inside of theirs. Now, if you look at the difference on the product code up here, on the original pressing, which I believe this one is, it's got the code NBLP7043, and then it's got a dash 7.98 for $7.98. This pressing, which I believe is probably a second pressing, does not have that 798 on the spine. So I'm kind of curious, is this the original? Or is there a different sleeve? Because oddly enough, this one came with 2 Casablanca sleeves. This does have just Casablanca. It does not say Casablanca Records and Filmworks. So most of the sleeves I see do say Casablanca Records and Filmworks. So that's kind of a geek question. If anybody knows that, I'll be shocked, but it'd be awesome if you did know. Sabbath Volume 4. Always in the mood to hear some Sabbath. Not much you can say about this. Classic, 1972 or so, 73, somewhere in that area. Heavy as heavy is. This is an original. I think it's an original pressing. It's on the green. Warner Brothers logo. It's not label. It's not a perfect pressing that I have. I'd say it's a VG Plus. I've had it forever. It does have the original booklet, which it's funny because it's been in here so long, the glue is starting to give out on this side here, but it actually isn't in too bad a shape considering how old it is. And here's the other. I know there were some later pressings that had the other Warner Brother labels, like the Palm Tree label and even the later Can Warner Brother label, where they didn't even put the booklet in, which is weird because then it ended up missing photos of the band members. But alright, next up, this is one-off project from Red Lamb. This was Dave Mustaine and Dave Mustaine and Danny Spitz. Danny Spitz, there you go. Got all tongue-tied and couldn't say his name. So we've got, let's see, songs written mostly, all lyrics by Dave Mustaine and Dan Spitz. Co-produced by Dave Mustaine and Dan Spitz. All music by Dan Spitz. Engineered by Dan Spitz. It says on here that the vocalist is... where's his name at? Lead vocals recorded at... blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I can't find the name of the vocalist. But, man, I tell you what, that vocal sounds an awful lot like Dave Mustaine at times. So I don't know if it's a pseudonym for Dave and, you know, and Dave couldn't put the album out and sing on it because of his label contract. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Let's see if it's on here. Don Chafin vocals. Or maybe it's a guy named Don Chafin and his voice sounds very much like Dave Mustaine. It's just Dave wrote a lot of the music and lyrics on here. He was going for that, you know, kind of gutsy, punky Dave Mustaine sound. So, yeah, one-off album. Doesn't show up very often. I've never seen anybody really show it. Black vinyl, original pressing. Came with a giant poster of the cover. Dave Mustaine, Dan Spitz, Red Lamb. Speed metal, thrash metal from After All. This is a band I spin quite a bit. Just really underrated band. Just a little late on the curve, that's all. You know, they weren't around the 80s. They were around in the 90s when this sort of music wasn't in vogue. Kind of like my band Ultimatum, you know, we were playing speed and thrash and heavy metal in the 90s when heavy metal was a dirty word. And same with these guys. But love this band. Everything I've heard from them is fantastic. So, what else have we got going on here? Oh, Doom from Count Raven. I need to get some more from them. This is the only album I have on vinyl. This is Storm Warning. Actually, after spinning this, I went and I looked up the discography, and I added a few more to my want list because it's just good stuff. And why I don't have more, I don't know. There's just so much to want, and so little money to buy it all. You know. More thrash metal. This is a repressing of Dark Angels. Time Does Not Heal on Back on Black. This one is a gatefold. It's two vinyl, two red. They're both red. I think it's freaking heavy. 280 gram records in here. Translucent red. So you've got 3 songs on side A, 2 songs on side B, 2 songs on side C, 3 songs on side D. This album is pretty long. It probably needed to be on 2 records. Probably could have been split on the 3 sides though, so you didn't have to turn it over so much. But regardless, it sounds good. It looks good. Nice to have a decent repressing of this thing. I heard that Century Media is repressing this one again. I wouldn't doubt it. It needs to be. It needs to stay in press. It's a great album. This one was at least 10 years ago. Yeah, 2008. This one was pressed, and so 11 years ago. Ron Reinhardt, vocalist. Great album. Another Motorhead album. Bad Magic. Just one I hadn't ever completely digested. You know, I was kind of just not one that I kind of latched onto like I did with several others. So when I was just in the mood to hear some Motorhead, I went in and looked and grabbed this one and gave it a spin. Yeah, it's a great album. Haven't heard it really since it was a brand new release, so quite enjoyed it. You can definitely hear that Lemmy's vocals are very tired sounding here as compared to albums that preceded it. But came with a download card, came with a CD. Also have the $1.99. Back when Best Buy used to sell music, they sold this $1.99 single, and with that you could buy the album, and you got like a $2 coupon off of the album on top of it. So kind of a cool little set there. Another one I've shown a lot recently, this is a new repressing, Deliverance. I'm not going to say a lot about it. Greeting of Death, the 1986 demo. It contains all the songs from the demo as well as 2 songs from the 1986 California Metal compilation. So they're all from the same year, all from the same lineup. I love it. Just great speed metal. Even a funny little country song on there called Speckled Bird. And 2 more here, and then I'll be done. Gee, you don't show Bolt Thrower very often. I have in the last month, have I not? Just got on a death metal kick, man. These guys were just doing it for me, you know. They aren't super fast. They aren't, ultra down tuned. They're just not. It seems to me it's almost like a competition to be who can be the heaviest, who can be the fastest, who can play down tune the lowest, whatever it might be. And that wasn't with Bolt Thrower. Bolt Thrower just seemed like they were. I just want to play some metal. I want to play some metal. And that's exactly what you get with Bolt Thrower, man. This is just pure metal through and through. It is got some speed to it, but yeah, it's not 100% blast beats all the time. It definitely has the guttural vocals, but it's just a lot of classic metal mixed in with this death metal band. So probably my favorite from them. I don't know. It's hard to say. I switch around with some of my favorites, but I know a lot of people that say this is the best that they put out. But the Fourth Crusade from, I believe it was 1990. This one came out 92, somewhere in that area. This is 2017 repressing, 1992. Yep, on Earache Records. Last one. This is some classic, second tier, second wave thrash metal from California. This is Defiance, their second album, Void Terra Firma. I have showed this one before, so I won't harp on it too long. But it is a good record if you're into that Testament style. Mid-80s thrash metal, that's where you're going to get with Defiance. Very good stuff, very great guitar playing, lots of that, quick, fast, steady down picking, great solos, dual solos, and just, exactly what you want to hear from a U.S. thrash band. So, Defiance, Void blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Void Terra Firma. So that's it. A whole lot of records and a lot of little time. That's what I do here. Whew. Did kind of go a little longer than I expected to, but there was a lot of records. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Let you go. Man, I'm tripping over my words. God bless. Stay strong.